So I want you to visualize a really specific scenario for a second. You're standing at the edge of a dense, humid forest.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
But not, a stylized illustration. I mean, a living, breathing woodland.
Yeah.
Right at that exact moment when the morning sun begins to just tear through the mist.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's the best time of day for light.
It really is. And if I handed you a blank canvas, a palette of oils, and challenged you to capture exactly what is in front of you, what is the very first color you reach for?
I mean, for almost anyone who hasn't spent decades studying optics, it's just a biological reflex, right? You reach for the green.
Exactly. You grab the brightest, most vibrant greens on your palette, you load up the bristles, you start layering the canvas, and, well, almost without fail, you end up stepping back to confront a total tragedy.
Yeah, it happens every time.
Because instead of a breathing forest, you've painted this flat, artificial, plastic-looking wall of leaves. The vitality is just entirely missing. It feels suffocating.
It's a real wall, yeah.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are opening an absolutely extraordinary masterclass document from Gruppe Poe, featuring the renowned master painter Rodolfo Im. And our mission today is ambitious. We're going to completely deconstruct the mechanics of light, shatter how you understand landscape painting, and rebuild the way you perceive the physical world.
It's so exciting to dig into this because that mistake you mentioned, reaching for the green, it's a profound perceptive error that we all make.
Right. It feels so natural to do, though.
It does, because when you reach for that green paint, you aren't actually painting what your retina is receiving. You're painting what your brain's cognitive shortcut tells you is there.
So it's an assumption.
Exactly. The human brain is just this massive efficiency machine. It categorizes the world to save energy. It says, trees equal leaves, leaves equal green, therefore apply green pigment.
Makes sense from a survival standpoint,
Right.
Sure.
But a real forest at dawn is not a collection of green objects. It's a theater of deep recessional shadows. It is suspended moisture refracting light. It's this warm, radiant energy bouncing off the raw earth.
And that disconnect between the brain's assumptions and the physical reality of light is really the core of this entire masterclass. We're going to step inside the mind of Rodolfo Im.
It's a brilliant place to be.
It really is. He's working on a standard 40 by 50 centimeter canvas here, using oils or acrylics. And we're going to watch a complex three-dimensional forest be born from literally nothing.
And the most staggering part of this Gruppe Im document is how he does it.
Right, because we're going to build this forest almost entirely without using the color green.
Which just sounds impossible, but, well, we begin with the void, the blank white canvas.
The terrifying blank canvas.
Exactly, and the instinct of the amateur is to immediately start sketching branches, mapping out the literal objects. But Rodolfo Im ignores the objects completely.
So what does he do first?
His very first step is to cover every single millimeter of the fabric in a solid, opaque, intensely warm base color.
Wait, really? A warm base?
Yeah. He mixes titanium white, yellow ochre, a touch of orange, and a specific raw earth pigment, what we call raw umber, or natural shadow.
Okay, so it's like a dense Naples yellow.
Precisely. The result is this luminous, dense tone that feels very close to Naples yellow.
But let's pause on that, because examining the psychological weight of that choice, it seems entirely contradictory.
How so?
Well, if the ultimate destination is a cool, damp, shaded forest, starting by painting the entire canvas a warm orange-yellow feels like wrapping a winter scene in a sunset filter. It just feels wrong.
I know. It appears totally contradictory until you understand the dual problems he's solving. He's solving one physical problem and one optical problem.
Okay, break that down for us. What's the physical problem?
Physically, raw canvas is a really hostile environment for delicate paint. It's a porous weave. It has this micro texture of woven threads that grips, snags, and just traps pigment.
Like painting on sandpaper or a sponge.
Yeah, exactly. So by mixing this opaque Naples yellow and driving it into the fabric, the master is essentially ironing out the microtexture. He is sealing the pores.
Oh, wow. So it creates a smooth surface.
Right. When he eventually applies his whisper-thin transparent layers, they're going to glide across this sealed surface rather than sinking into the fabric and looking chalky.
And reading the masterclass notes, it also mentions this lets him easily wipe away drawing errors with a damp cloth, right? Because the weave is protected.
Yes, the underlying weave won't get stained, but honestly, the optical logic is even more compelling.
Because paint isn't just color.
No, not at all. Paint is crushed minerals suspended in oil. Light actually travels through it.
And that is the crucial mechanic here. Oil paint, when applied thinly, is translucent.
Right. So this warm, opaque Naples yellow base acts as a biological light mirror. As the painting progresses, this layer will be buried beneath dozens of darker applications.
But it doesn't just disappear.
Never. Ambient light from the room you're standing in will actually enter the surface of the painting, travel down through the dark glazes, hit that opaque Naples yellow at the very bottom, and bounce back into your eye.
So it's like a chromatic DNA.
I love that. Yes, a chromatic DNA, it radiates a unified, warm temperature from the inside out.
It's just brilliant. He's building a masterpiece on invisible architecture. The layer that ultimately gives the forest its inner glow, the layer that unifies the entire atmosphere, is the one the viewer will never consciously identify.
If you build a forest on a stark, unpainted white canvas, the light bounces back cold, harsh, clinical. The painting just becomes a fragmented jigsaw puzzle of disconnected colors fighting each other.
But by establishing this chromatic DNA, every subsequent brushstroke is forced to speak the same thermal language.
Exactly. So once that warm light is sealed into the canvas, it requires a skeleton to bounce off of. And that's when the Raw Umber document moves us into the drawing phase.
But even here, Rodolfo Im isn't simply placing trees to fill space. He is architecturally designing the viewer's psychological journey.
It's all incredibly deliberate. He varies the physical weight of the trunk. Some lean, some are merely suggested. And crucially, he meticulously carves out a luminous, empty opening right in the center of the composition.
He understands that a painting is fundamentally a trap for the human eye, doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He's directing your gaze before the details even exist. By leaving that central void, you feel the atmospheric pressure pulling you inward.
The apparent randomness of the trunks it's this highly calculated mimicry of nature's chaos, designed specifically to frame that central light.
And here is where the masterclass completely inverts expectations again. The drawing is established. The canvas is yellow. The first actual color is introduced to the trees.
And it is not green foliage.
No, nor does he reach for a heavy black to establish the dark bark. He reaches for burnt sienna.
A rich, reddish earth tone.
Yes, and he applies it in incredibly diluted, almost watercolor-like glazes over the trunks.
I have to interject here because this is wild. He is building a lush green forest using diluted red paint. How does the painting not just turn into a muddy brown mess?
Because this is the exact moment that separates rendering from true realism. He is utilizing the physics of transparency. Depth on a canvas does not come from applying thick, dark, opaque pigment.
Right, if you just paste thick black oil paint onto a canvas to make a shadow, it just sits on the surface.
It looks like a sticker. True, breathable depth is born from accumulated transparencies.
So it's like stacking sheets of colored glass.
It is a tempting comparison, but glass is a solid, rigid barrier. This is more akin to layering microscopic atmospheres. Because the pigment is so heavily diluted with a medium, the oil allows the light to refract.
Ah, I see.
Rodolfo Im applies a whisper-thin veil of burnt sienna over the shadow areas. He refuses to suffocate the Naples yellow underneath. He forces the two to interact.
And as that first veil dries, he applies another. Layer after mathematical layer, the burnt sienna slightly darkens the values.
Right, and he's generating an immense variety of tones using only one pigment, because the yellow light pushes through the thin areas and the red accumulates in the thick areas.
So the eye perceives warm golden browns, deep rusts, and cool mahogany, all from one tube of paint.
Yes, he creates the illusion of texture through optical contrast rather than physical relief. The rough bark, the twisting roots, they aren't built with mounds of paint. They are illusions born from the way light gets trapped in these varying depths of red glaze.
That is it's cinematic. And reading further, once the structure is established, he takes that raw earth pigment we mentioned earlier, the natural shadow or raw umber, dilutes it heavily, and pushes it solely into the deepest, most inaccessible recesses of the forest.
Only the hollows where sunlight simply cannot reach.
Looking at the visual progression in the document at this stage, the transformation is actually jarring. We're staring at a massive three-dimensional space. You can physically sense the distance between the foreground roots and the distant canopy.
And yet, it's essentially a grisaille, a monochromatic underpainting constructed entirely of red and brown earth tones over a yellow light.
Which enforces a really severe law of classical painting. Volume and light must be resolved in 3 dimensions before local color is ever introduced.
The structural integrity of the environment must be bulletproof. Color is merely the final skin.
But the space is carved. And reading through the masterclass notes, a new problem emerges at this stage. The forest has immense structure, but It feels heavy. It's breathless.
He lacks oxygen.
Exactly. The environment lacks oxygen.
It lacks the physical reality of atmosphere. Because in the natural world, you are never viewing an object in a vacuum. You are viewing an object through an ocean of particulate matter.
And to solve this, Rodolfo Im introduces a technique that completely shifts the paradigm of the painting. He mixes a highly diluted, ethereal gray-blue glaze.
The document is very specific here. It's cobalt blue, warm white, and a microscopic touch of that raw umber to ground it.
But he doesn't just paint the sky with this, right?
No, not at all. He washes this delicate blue glaze right over the tops of the painted trunks and pushes it deep into the background of the red forest.
It's honestly exactly like turning on a fog machine on a movie set.
Huh, yes. That is a fantastic way to put it.
Because before this, the trees were just, stacked on top of each other. Now, the background physically separates from the foreground.
Right. It's a profound manipulation of space, anchored entirely in a phenomenon known as Rayleigh scattering. What he is executing here is atmospheric or aerial perspective.
Let's break down the mechanics of that. Why does washing a transparent blue over a red tree force it to recede miles into the distance?
Well, consider the air in a real forest. It is saturated with moisture, evaporating dew, and microscopic dust. As an object recedes further from your eye, the amount of that physical atmosphere you have to look through increases exponentially.
Okay.
These water molecules and particles scatter the shorter wavelengths of light, which are the blue wavelengths.
So the biological reality of distance dictates that objects must lose their contrast, their edges must blur, and their temperature must drastically cool down.
Exactly. By dragging this transparent cobalt blue mixture over the distant background elements, Rodolfo Im is artificially simulating atmospheric moisture on a flat surface.
He's forcefully cooling down those warm burnt siennas.
Yes, he is destroying the sharp contrasts that the eye associates with proximity.
He is quite literally painting the humidity. It's staggering when you dissect it.
Yeah.
Air is invisible. You cannot paint it. But you can meticulously paint how the air degrades the objects it touches.
And the exact moment that blue glaze settles over the background, the painting ceases to be a canvas. It becomes a place.
The visual tension between the crisp, warm, highly contrasted foreground and the dissolving, cool, blue-gray background forces your brain to calculate vast distance.
He weaponizes your own biological programming to finalize the optical illusion. The space is now fully breathable.
So we have an invisible, radiating yellow foundation. We have a robust architectural skeleton carved from red earth. We have painted moisture and atmospheric depth. We have built an entire living forest. And we still haven't opened a single tube of green paint.
It's crazy, but we have finally reached the climax of the master's process. The foundation is perfect, the light is locked in, and the greens can finally make their entrance.
But the Grupo Reum notes issue a massive warning here. It is never just one green.
No. A single tube of green paint drops you right back into the plastic artificial trap we discussed at the very beginning.
Right. Instead, Rodolfo Im deploys an intricate ecosystem of temperatures. He introduces yellow ochre, raw sienna, chrome green, light and dark English green, and various permanent greens.
It's a calculated symphony of warm and cool vegetation, but he refuses to paint opaque, literal leaves. He applies all of these greens as transparent glazes.
And then, amidst this layered sea of green, he deliberately places tiny, sharp touches of oxide red and deep, nearly black accents of Payne's gray, which carries a subtle, bluish tint.
Now I know what you're thinking.
I really have to question the logic of that specific choice. We spend hours building to the greens, and he immediately disrupts them by dropping oxide red, a rust color, directly into the foliage. Why introduce that friction? And why refuse to paint thick, realistic leaves when the painting is almost finished?
Let's address the friction first, because it reveals a deep mastery of visual psychology. In the physics of color theory, red and green are direct complementary wavelengths. They sit in absolute opposition.
Right, opposite sides of the color wheel.
Exactly. If you fill a canvas entirely with varied greens, the human eye quickly reaches a state of sensory fatigue. The brain tunes the green out, it flattens into a monotonous wall.
It becomes visual white noise.
Yes. By meticulously placing tiny, sharp accents of oxide red within that foliage, he creates a phenomenon called simultaneous contrast.
Oh, wow.
The red forces the retina to snap to attention. The surrounding greens suddenly appear violently more intense, more lush, and deeply alive, purely because they are forced to chemically compete with their complement.
It's akin to a musical dissonance in a symphony. A slightly jarring chord that makes the subsequent resolution sound infinitely richer and more profound.
That is a much more accurate framework. It's brilliant. And as for why he maintains the transparency of the greens, consider the architectural history we just built.
The invisible yellow light.
Yes, the red earth trunks, the blue atmosphere. If he were to load his brush with thick, opaque green paint and render literal leaves, he would permanently suffocate the entire history of the painting. He would extinguish the light.
By applying the greens as thin, transparent veils, the warm, reddish underpainting continues to radiate from beneath. You have cool green sitting delicately on top of warm shadows, creating a temperature vibration that perfectly mimics the chaotic way sunlight filters through a dense living canopy.
This is the ultimate revelation of the masterclass. Rodolfo Im does not paint a single leaf. He does not render the microscopic veins of the vegetation.
He simply provides the precise optical triggers, shifts in temperature, bouncing light, complementary vibrations, and then he stops.
He delegates the final rendering to the viewer.
That is incredible.
It is. The human retina acts as a biological mixer. It absorbs these vibrating contrasts of warm and cool, light and shadow, and the visual cortex instantaneously translates them into hyper-realistic, complex vegetation.
If the master were to over-explain every detail, the painting would feel stiff and dead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By leaving it as a matrix of optical clues, the forest feels wildly alive because your own mind is actively, continuously constructing the reality while you observe it.
True mastery in painting is not about documenting everything you see. It is about engineering the exact psychological and visual conditions required for the viewer's own mind to manifest the magic. It completely reframes the purpose of art.
Rodolfo Im proves that if you rigorously obey the physics of light, the behavior of atmosphere, and the psychology of perception, the literal subject matter, the forest, simply reveals itself as a byproduct of those laws.
So how do we synthesize the sheer volume of insight from this Raw Umber masterclass? We began this deep dive trapped in a perceptive error, trying to force a forest into existence with thick layers of green paint, resulting in a flat, artificial wall.
And we learned that a true landscape is constructed through an entirely different paradigm. It's anchored by an invisible warm foundation that unifies the themal language of the canvas.
Its structure is carved from earth tones, utilizing layers of transparency to generate deep recessional space without the burden of heady physical texture.
It demands the application of painted air, that ethereal cobalt blue glaze of atmospheric perspective, to forcefully separate the foreground from the background and inject breathable humidity into the space.
And we ultimately discovered that the greens are merely the final transparent skin. They're an ecosystem of complementary wavelengths vibrating against each other, tricking the brain into perceiving immense life where there is technically only suspended pigment and oil.
When you fully internalize the mechanics of this process, you realize that professional painting is not the act of replicating reality. It is the act of engineering an experience of light.
And that realization extends far beyond the borders of a 40 by 50 centimeter canvas. It alters how you engage with the physical world. The curtain of reality is pulled back, and you no longer just see objects.
You begin to perceive the hidden architecture of the world, the relentless, complex relationships between light, surface, and atmosphere.
I want to leave you with a final thought, a way to test this new framework. The next time you find yourself walking through a real forest or simply observing a tree outside your window as the afternoon light begins to fail, force your brain to ignore the leaves, bypass the green shortcut, look deeper into the structure.
Search for the hidden reds and deep earth tones trapped in the shadows of the bark. Notice how the distant objects lose their sharp edges and cool down into atmospheric blues.
Look for the warm, radiant reflections bouncing off the dirt, illuminating the hidden underside of the canopy.
It's all there, waiting to be seen.
Ask yourself, how much of the solid, tangible world you think you're looking at is actually just your brain rapidly translating the beautiful, chaotic, and unending journey of light? When you look closely enough, you realize the X-ray machine of human perception is wonderfully, beautifully complex. The muddy, transparent waters of light and shadow are where the true magic of reality happens.